as I look around the room, there are a whole bunch of folks who have contributed very substantively to the competing renewal that we uploaded to NCATS now 2 weeks ago. Upload was completed 2 weeks ago today, and I just want to say thank you. We're going to talk a little bit about that, not only about the application itself, but also about future directions in the CCTS. But for all of you who contributed, thanks, and thank you again. It was a huge team effort. It's one, frankly, that I trust we all are very proud of. It's certainly one that I'm very proud of. I mean, you never know what's going to happen with the study section. But as I've thought about it, I don't think we could have done anything more, anything substantively different from what we did. I think we have proposed a really very exciting set of opportunities going forward, and that's part of what we want to talk about. So we're going to try this afternoon to build on that momentum and talk a little bit about some of the future opportunities in the CCTS. Sidebar comment, there's still a lot of stuff in the back room, so I won't be disappointed or offended if anybody goes to the back room as long as you come back to your seat. You're not allowed to use that as a roundabout to get out. And what I'd like to do is spend some time today giving you a little bit of a frame for discussion, but I'm going to be asking a number of you to comment on things that you have done and how you see you can contribute to the activities that we have. My job, according to my boss, who's here in the second row, is that I'm just supposed to orchestrate the larger discussion. So with that, someone changed that slide. Was that on the slide deck that I saw? We're going to zip right by that. But these are all the people who have been involved, and not even all the people. There were, as you may know, in one of these NIH kind of grants, you have to submit biosketches. And that sort of describes sort of where you grew up and what you've contributed to science and all that good kind of stuff. Any guess as to how many biosketches were in our grant?
100.
Excuse me?
100.
100. Oh, man. Any other guesses? Any other thoughts?
500.
500. Oh, okay, well. Any other guesses? 350. Well, I'll tell you, we did have to actually put in a cutoff because you'll see on one of the slides, I think we set a record for the largest grant ever uploaded from this institution. 5,115 pages. If I have the slide correctly, it'll come up in a minute. So we did have to set a cutoff at some point, but we had 435 biosketches. That's a lot. I'll just say every one of them edited for format. So that just in and of itself is a huge amount of work. So to everybody whose signature, even if you don't recognize your signature on this page, everyone who's contributed, thank you, and thank you so much. So what's the structure of the CCTS? 3 major components, but actually in real space, we had to upload the equivalent of 12 grants. And it wasn't just 12 separate grants. It had to be 12 grants that were all coordinated and spoke to one another. So what that meant is that some folks actually had to read and line edit all 12. Anyone in this room who did that? Yeah. So I want to say thank you, Jennifer, because without that, we would not have pulled it together. I would like to say she had a little bit of help from someone else who read all 12 sections, but it really was a team effort, but leadership was really key in pulling it together. And that's part of what makes this so exciting, because I do realize it's a huge lift to get your hands around the whole thing, but when you can do that, it's really rather remarkable. Anyway, a UL1 with all the subcomponents you see there, a KL2 and a TL1. It's the K grant, the T grant, and everything else we do within the CCTS space. So the application, ooh, there's animation on this. I should have asked how many letters, how many budget and justification pages, Biosketches. I was off by 50, my apologies. Look at that, 5,115 pages. Has anyone ever uploaded a grant into NIH Assist? I mean, really done it? Who in there, some of you have. Have you ever had it on what you feed it? Our third upload, because we actually uploaded a week in advance to find out where the errors were, and then we pulled it back, corrected it, uploaded it again, found a few more errors, pulled it back, and then we were ready to go. We were getting close to the deadline. We started uploading on Wednesday, more than 48 hours in advance of the deadline, and it started to choke. And that's when we started to choke, because we were afraid we were about to crash the system. Happily, when we came in on Thursday morning, it was up and it had digested it. And just as a little bit of positive reinforcement, we had a conference call on Monday with our program officer, who actually had already downloaded it. So we know that it made it. So what is it all about? You can read this word cloud. There's another word cloud later that we're very proud of. I'd like to give you the quick overview. You know, we have the partner network. We actually expanded that a little bit with a few more places in Louisiana and in Mississippi. And, you know, one of the issues was not only for the grant, but others around have asked, well, what did you accomplish with your partner network? Have you really done anything? Or is this all just grant speak and fluff and puff? And so we asked ourselves, how many NIH applications have we done with at least 3, often more, but at least 3 partners as participants in the grant? And then we said, okay, before we started this exercise in 2013, what was it like? How many did we do? And then how many did we do in 2017? And the numbers are up there. In 2013, we, together as a network, did 2. And in 2017, we did 12. And we have used that to launch some things which have never happened in this institution and in this region. And I'll tell you a little bit about some of them. Actually, I won't tell you a lot, but one is All of Us. The All of Us is the NIH Precision Medicine, actually our second application, where we decided that probably we ought to go try to take over the state of Texas, was Alabama focused. And NIH said, we'd like to fund you if you bring the partner network along with the application. So now we have the partner network supporting the All of Us application, and that keeps Mona awake all day and all night, every day of the week, because we had the easy part, which was writing it down. Mona, you've got to do it. That's the second. Caesar 2, a couple of our partners. This again is another genomic medicine doing with Mississippi and HudsonAlpha, and that's looking for the evidence to show that whole genome sequencing actually can save money and sharpen therapeutics. This happens to be in the pediatric space. And we just received word last week that NiMDS is going to fund StrokeNet, where we are going to be the hub for a Southeast regional StrokeNet clinical trial network. something that frankly our neurologists and neurosurgeons have been trying to do for a number of years, but we provided a little bit of a broader scope and a little bit more scale, and they said, we want to work with you guys. And I hope you all know about the Alabama Genome Health Initiative. Of course, this is not just CCTS, but CCTS is contributing very importantly to this because we're not only providing the informatics support for AGHI, we're providing the biorepository support and through some of our partners, in particular Stephen Shodake at Tuskegee, working with folks in Mona's division. We're reaching out to how do we interface with the communities to make genomic medicine meaningful to people so we can together understand where the real potential for advancement of health is. And obviously that's a sensitive issue. The sensitive issue around the country. Some people think it might be even more sensitive than Alabama, and actually Stephen Shodake is now on the national committee dealing with some of these issues as part of the All of Us. So it's a way in which we've leveraged. There are a bunch of things we've done in terms of CTSA consortium activities, but I actually want to get to a point where we can have other people do some talking. So I'm going to zip by this slide, but as you can see, if you can read that, we've got a lot of stuff going on. Stuff that's in collaborative projects in informatics, in precision medicine, in clinical and translational research around the Southeast, and a lot in training and workforce development. And I'd be happy over the rest of the growler that's in the back room to discuss any of these that you would like. So I don't know if anyone's seen this particular graphic. We couldn't actually find room to put this into our application. But I think the point of this is to say that fundamental to what we do is the development of the workforce, where the workforce is all of us, not just some of us, and that embraces our partners, our communities, and it's through the development of research teams involving our communities and partners that create the foundation upon which we can sharpen our science and we can innovate and then do what we need to do to improve health. So sometimes there is a question about what do we do in the training space, and David has come in right on cue because you had a session on the CTS TP this morning, which was really fantastic to have you leading that session. But I think the point of this slide was to make the point that, you know, formally in terms of the partner network, we haven't even been in business for 3 years, which is really rather remarkable. And over that time, we have seen the active participation of our partners go from something which is at the very beginning, which means our partners are saying, what's going on here? What are you guys doing? To incredible participation where they are submitting applications and we're working together, whether it's in the pilot space or the training space. One example is the CTS TP. David, could you just give us a couple of snippets on what's been happening and how many partners and who's sitting in the room, who's coming in virtually? What's happening?
So we this year we've had a little over a third of the total group, which has grown from about 25 participants now this year to almost 45 participants. A third are from partners, and a couple of them met the drive. And today there were oral presentations of their research projects. So somebody came from Auburn to give their presentation, which was terrific. But we had 2 other presentations by GoToMeeting that were outstanding. And there's really interaction among people from the different institutions that have been organized around the training activities that are really exciting to see.
Good. So, you know, one of the messages David and I had the chance to kick off the CTSTP in January. And what was really remarkable is not only the number of partners, the number of people and the number of partners who came in virtually, but the number who have stayed with it. And it speaks to the fact that we really have developed that fabric. Of course, more work to do. I think that's always the case, or at least that's what my boss tells me. But and you can decide who my boss is. There are probably several who would qualify. But it's a huge opportunity, which is great. Trying to think of who can explain this slide. Where is Jennifer? I think this is going to have to be on you. I'm sorry.
Okay.
You're going to have to do this. Explain both the word cloud and that great basketball figure.
Okay, so I think what we were trying to demonstrate by this figure is that we don't engage in training at any one particular stage in a investigator's career span, nor do we only engage investigators. We find it very important, and it's part of our mission to work with investigators and community members and research staff as key members of a team. And so on the right, you see a figure that tries to demonstrate how this all comes together and points to a couple of the acronyms, some of the programs that we run. So for example, if I could point to the blue arrow at the top, you can see a nice flow from UG being our undergrad population through our TL1, T32, which is predoctoral and postdoctoral opportunities, KL2, which are for early career scholars, and CITP for faculty who are involved in clinical trials. And the reason I raised this particular aspect is the UG, while we are not specifically driving any of the programs, we have the unique and special opportunity to work with the Honors College here at the Hub, and we're trying to develop these kinds of programs across the partner network. And so David Chaplin and I had the pleasure of working and participating in some of the Honors College events over the course of the past semester. And when they went back and asked them for their experience, this is a word cloud representing the feedback that the students gave as part of the translational science or the translational research program that they got to participate in. So it was wonderful.
Thanks. I now see hiding behind the door.
There's a lot hiding behind.
Right. So there's also a group. There's another screen in the back room. The disadvantage is they have to do everything on the screen. The advantage is there's no distance between where they're sitting and where the bar is. Bob Muggs, any comments about the training academy that you want to make and where we'd like to go?
So I think David and Jennifer spoke to this. I think what's been exciting for me getting involved is a great foundation, and meeting with Shantice and Max and community partners and talking about how does the training academy extend to the other hexagons within community, with the CHIA awards, with the Community Engaged Institute, and also with Meredith and the CRISP and the work that they're doing, and talking about how do we synergize so that the training academy really, I think we see is not just existing within the training space or training hexagon, but spanning across all the aspects of the CCTS, both at the hub and across the partner network. So a really engaged group speaking to how training is central, across the career arc, but also really across the entire network.
Good, thanks very much. So one other comment perhaps about translational workforce development. And Shantice, be prepared. You're going to be on the hook for some comments in just a moment. One of the things we were asked to do in the application was to point out things where we have had an impact through our work in translational science. We have had an impact on health and policy. And so we tried to pick out some vignettes that are actually throughout the grant. And yes, you're right, I'm trying to stimulate interest for everyone to ask for a PDF of the 5,115 pages so you can read them all. But one that I'd like to highlight is Jamie Locke. Jamie is a transplant surgeon, if you don't know her. She works primarily in renal transplant. She's done some great work in the survival of grafts in the context of HIV and hepatitis C disease. And based on her data, we have now revised the national guidelines for transplantation. Because of that, back in April, when at least some of us were at ACTS, Jamie received the ACTS Distinguished Investigator Award for translation to public benefit and policy. So that's something we all have contributed to in many ways, but something I think we should be proud of. Where's Meredith? Meredith, do you want to make just a couple of quick comments about what we're doing in terms of workforce development that might be illustrated in this?
Well, we start with GCP training, and we incorporate GCP training in everything that we do. We hope that all investigators within starting their adventure at UAB will do the Miami CITI GCP training, and we incorporate that training in our research orientation, our research training program, the investigator program, and then all of our lunch and learns and research seminars. So GCPs are the basic building blocks to all research, protecting human subjects and collecting good quality data. So we hope that we're meeting the needs of all investigators across campus.
Good, thank you. And for those of you who haven't yet played the Kaizen game, we've developed the Kaizen platform we can talk about in another setting, but it's really a platform for a lot of educational activities. Actually, the NCATS, our NIH sponsor, is quite interested in this, and they have invited the submission of an administrative supplement. You know, it's one of those things. We were in the process of putting together this grant. We knew it would have to be submitted on May 25th. And we were asking ourselves, what are we going to do after the 25th? And so we decided, well, maybe we should write some administrative supplements and submit them 5 days later. And we did 2 for $1 million. So we'll see how they go. But actually, both of, at least in the first wave, have been very favorably received.
Having just one additional comment, please.
Please.
So thank you. I'm remiss to not recognize Becky Remy, who's back here, and Jean Merchant, who have in the training academy space, with David and I, really provided tremendous leadership. So they've been doing a lot of work in the training academy space. So want to acknowledge them, as well as partners in informatics, Matt Wyatt, and the Bird folks, Emily, David Redden. So really, I think training sits so centrally in terms of expanding the hexagons. But without Becky and Jean, I could speak for myself and say it would be very challenging. So thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'm giving Jake and Zaychen a few moments to think about what you might say. Obviously, informatics played a huge role in this because I think there's the recognition that informatics, data science, a lot of different terms, is absolutely fundamental to everything we do. For those of you who watch this space, the NIH actually released its strategic plan for data science earlier this week. And we are very much, we are very well positioned to play a key role in that. So part of this is done at the Hub. A lot of this is also done through our partners. And we thought it would be fun, and we did in the grant, to show both Jim's picture and Chito's picture. And I'm sorry we didn't have room for pictures of everybody, but that gives you guys the opportunity to talk now. So one of the things, Elliot working showed that the growth of CCTS informatics has been rather dramatic. This is actually, for those of you who are looking, the multiples of growth is really astonishing. So a tribute to Elliot and the entire CCTS informatics group for that. But there's also something that's affectionately called UBright. Now, Jim is not able to be here today. So if Jim is online, he can either speak from the ceiling and spook us all out, or he can ask Jake to speak.
I guess he wants Jake to speak.
Okay, all those in favor of Jake? It is unanimous. Jake needs a microphone.
Well, thanks to CCTS and School of Medicine support, we recently launched this UBright, which stands for UAB Biomedical Research Infrastructure Technology Enhancement Project. UBright is ambitious in the sense that we want to create a UAB data common that will enable program-specific translational science through open architecture, open access of data that's derived from investigator locally, and that can also allows the interoperations of clinical data, multiple omics data type imaging in the future with the potential annotation of data from the public data common project hosted by NIH. So currently we have several teams from lupus and rheumatoid arthritis and precision oncology and GBM, glioblastoma group as a guinea pig, quote unquote, to really test out features. And this really is enabled by CCTS and allow us to think for the future. And
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I think we all look forward to what that can do, but there are some other things in informatics. I mean, realize we're picking 1 or 2 points from 25. And so again, this is an invitation, guys. Anyone who wants the 5,115 pages is welcome. One of the other things we're doing in informatics is what we call the Informatics Gateway. And David, I think, is in the back room with his foot up on the brass rail. But one of the goals is to bring together expertise in informatics with expertise in methodology for study design, and think about ways that can help all of our investigators around campus. Elliot, do you want to make a couple of quick comments about the Gateway?
Sure.
And I'm going to have to pick up my pace. So.
I'm also glad I didn't have that 5th glass of wine. So in any case, researchers across campus are coming to the realization that utilizing data, analyzing data is a critical aspect of all of their research, and the complexity in doing that these days goes beyond the people they normally have in their lab. And introducing the ability to even design experiments at the very beginning, even before you submit a grant, before you start preparing a grant, is critical to the success of your research program. You need that expertise in bioinformatics, in biostatistics, in study design that can bring to your group the expertise needed to ensure that the data is analyzed in a proper state-of-the-art fashion. The Informatics Gateway is a forum in which you can present your research to the bioinformaticians, biostatisticians on campus who can comment on what you may need to really enhance your research, and in addition can help put together a team that you can that can serve as collaborators on your research as you move into the future, as you submit the grants, as you start the work on the project in the first place.
Good. Thanks very much. So a couple of things from informatics, a lot of other stuff going on, but we probably don't have time, at least this evening, to go into it. But this evening is an invitation for further discussions about what we can be doing. So I had given Shantice a heads up, and this is the opportunity to talk a little bit about what we're doing with engagement of communities, in part through OGC, One Great Community, but really expanding that to have a somewhat broader reach. So Shantice, if you have anything that you'd like to provide to help illustrate this fantastically colorful diagram, which was actually one of the diagrams in the grant, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. And I just wanted to say also thank you to Max Michael. I know he's not in the room this afternoon, for the work that he's done at the partner network level, just kind of going around and having conversations with all of those contacts in terms of thinking about how do we structure ourselves and synergize across the network. With just the piece in the middle, the Community Health Innovation Awards with CHIA, that's been kind of a real standing piece of the work in the community and collaboration space since the CCTS, or maybe 5 years into the CCTS's origin. And we will be doing that again this upcoming year with those innovation awards and an opportunity to do grant making in the community around innovative and interesting projects. So that's something that's happening kind of in the Birmingham or metro area. The One Great Community piece, which is our advisory group for for the community and collaboration piece, is a 51%, 49% community effort, and then UAB makeup, and that group meets every other month. The let's see, the Community Engagement Institute, as you can see on the slide, is something that's an annual event that brings together academicians and community leadership to have conversations around principles of engagement. And then there are a number of things that are kind of happening to come across the region with in the training space as well. And we've had some conversation with them about how to align better between those particular two entities, as well as the work with the Alabama Genome Project and all of us. So we're really excited about what's to come and are just looking forward to the collaborations across the partner network.
Thank you. Now, part of the collaborations are across the partner network, but actually within the CCTS, we have engagement of communities across the CTSA network. Alan, do we have any collaborations with other CTSAs that might be subserving translational research?
Yeah, absolutely. At least in the women's and certainly in the maternal and perinatal area, we have with at least 5 other CTSAs, and they all have co-funded projects in that area and supported the application.
So, Alan, Alan, you are far too modest. There are a couple of things. You've put together a consortium of persons interested in perinatal medicine to help understand how we can do a better job in that regard. You're also doing something, I believe, that has to do with chronic hypertension in pregnancy. Are you not?
That's right. I'm trying to help you with time, but it's the National Perinatal Research Consortium that involves 5 CTSAs and a rare registry to study rare adverse events. In fact, we just submitted a grant that has to do with disability in pregnancy and received support from pretty much the CTSA consortium countrywide, and then chronic hypertension, which involves an ongoing trial in pregnancy. And we've screened about 70 centers nationally, coast to coast, and we have about 60-something participating currently, and with CTSA facilitation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to just make one comment on this slide. One of our strategies has been leveraging. So when we've done CHIA awards, obviously the CCTS contributes a little bit, but actually other partners, institutional partners, civic partners have contributed much more than we have. We sort of view this as a nucleation principle, as others have stepped up with your leadership, Shantice, and Max's leadership. And we're really quite proud of that leveraging. And if you were to be a fast reader, you would realize that actually working with the City Council, we've done a little bit more leveraging than that. Because a $6.5 million project initiated by the City of Birmingham actually sprang from efforts in OGC. And that's not too bad as a return. And there's Max, and you as well, Shantice. Okay, as part of community and collaboration, team science is also part of it, and we talked before in this forum about panels and a number of engaged reviewers, but I'd just like to say thank you for all of the community and what you have contributed as reviewers in this, the growth in the use of panels, the success of panels, the number of engaged requesters and reviewers continues to grow, and it's really quite remarkable. Professor Redden, any comments you would like to make about research methods and the growth?
You put that mic in my face. You think I need a mic?
Yes, you
Okay.
do. Yes, you
So
do.
going back to the comment
And I gave Mona a heads up of what the next slide is.
Okay. So as a heads up, just really quick, that number of 800 investigators and 1,047 unique projects across the whole network, that number was sitting all the way back in March. If you think about that for 1 minute and bring us all the way up to where we are now, that's actually more than one collaboration per day for every day that we have had the funding in this cycle. That is not business days. That is absolute days. So we are very proud of the collaborations that we offer to everybody. As I told the methodologist the other day in an email, whenever I'm around this campus, people are, and even talking to people throughout the network, they are very, very appreciative of the effort we put into designing and assisting them writing their specific games, making certain that their analysis plans line up, assisting them with the mystery of power, and going from there.
Good. Thanks very much. So I hope you guys know BIRD is really very active, and when we combine the expertise in BIRD with the efforts in panels, the kinds of things that deans like to hear is that the success in actually moving science forward is reflected in success in funding is really remarkably high. We outperform the average NIH funding rate by somewhere between 4- and 5-fold, which is not too bad. And we're actually quite proud of it, and thank you, David. So among the issues that we are challenged to do within the CCTS, and really across the CTSA consortium, is to make sure that we reach out to all of the people that we serve. Special populations might be pediatric populations, perinatal populations, they might be geriatric populations, but they might also be persons with different backgrounds from different areas of the city and of the region. So Mona, as you know, has been a leader in how to develop appropriate ways to engage lots of different communities in research and giving feedback about the kinds of questions that are important to communities. You may or may not be able to see this, but Mona has participated in the Trial Innovation Network, presented seminars really to the national consortium about this. Mona, any comments, thoughts you'd like to make?
No, I'm just going to say that we were also, when we thought about testing using lay navigators to enhance minority participation in therapeutic trials, we proved that it's successful, and the partner networks, all the partners are interested in getting this training and implement this, disseminate this strategy in the other institutions. But also we are doing this now as part of the All of Us. We have already conducted at least 2 or 3 trainings of patient navigators to recruit the 20,000 people for this year among the partners, and then 30,000 each year for the next few years. So actually the startup, even just with their interest through the CTSA to get trained, and now we're actually implementing it among the partner networks. So hopefully it's going to work.
Thank you. We did take advantage of Ryan Durant's success. He has been not only a trainee of the Health Disparity Research Training Program, also a recipient of a CCTS pilot, and a project PI on a U54 dealing with post-discharge ways of anticipating who might be at risk for early readmission so that one could intervene effectively in advance of that and avoid that. So I'm going to pick up, with your permission, the pace just to go through. We've talked a lot about a number of the programs. Part of what we do is we provide support in the clinical research unit. We provide support in biorepository, specimen processing, and clinical trials. And although Meredith might be out in the atrium, Chris' business continues to grow. And you can see these. These are all, it's really quite remarkable. Just CRU alone, if you like facts, in the last 4 years, the number of patient encounters on GT15 has gone up 93%. I mean, that's a staggering increase in business. It represents a couple of things. More activity in clinical research. It also represents people beginning to understand the kinds of things they can do up there that will enhance their own research and move things forward. So I need a, is Matt out in the atrium? Is he in the back room at the bar? Or did he have to, it's not clear. Because I need to know whether I'm supposed to tell the truth. All right. Am I supposed to tell the truth, or can I? Uh-oh. So now I have to tell the truth. Okay, so a couple of things. We have the opportunity within the CCTS application to put in 2 special modules. And we chose to put in 2, one on genomic medicine, which is illustrated here, which is really based on undiagnosed disease program, which is led by Bruce Korf. And that's an opportunity to use not only clinical expertise, but to engage the expertise in sequencing that we have through our, not only the hub, but also HudsonAlpha, to begin to understand maybe the mechanisms in some unexplained diseases. This is, you can see the number that's gone through here. This is over the last 2 years. And it really is quite a remarkable capacity that has been successful. So we decided in this to couple the what had been the somewhat more classical genomic medicine together with a concept of precision therapeutics, where we would learn the lessons or learn lessons in that genomic sequencing, perhaps identifying targets that could be druggable, and then use that to inform our drug discovery program. Part of this, I think, Matt, you suggested the idea. Sometimes drug discovery is investigator initiated, but perhaps of equal, maybe even more importance is when it's patient initiated. So you might say a little bit about what you see happening in precision therapeutics.
Yes, I think the reason this came up is that for some reasonable fraction of the patients that we see either through the undiagnosed diseases program or the ones that come to the Precision Medicine Institute, they have a gene which is an actionable drug target. And so this is a chance to link that to actual drug discovery and say, well, we know the root cause of your disease, and the root cause of your disease is screenable. So let's vet this and actually get the screen done. So that's why we're adding this sort of second arm to the drug discovery to make it truly into precision therapeutics.
Good. So this is one of the new initiatives in the CCTS and one that we really look forward to. It's probably evident to all of you. We certainly hope we have the opportunity to go forward on all of the ideas that we've talked about. Again, that's in the hands of a learned study section. It's interesting when you talk about study sections and how it works. I actually volunteered to be on the study section to help review our grant, but I think NIH said, nice idea, but maybe not, maybe in a different setting. Kidding aside, we look forward to that review. We're always open to suggestions and feedback. But I'll stress what I mentioned at the very beginning. Even with more time, I don't think we really would have put in a substantially different proposal. You can always tweak at the edges. I'm sure there was a misspelling or two that we missed. But we're exceptionally proud of what you all have done in putting together this grant. And I think it represents a really exciting opportunity. The other part of precision therapeutics, as you know, we've had a somewhat more traditionally oriented program of identifying plausible biologic targets by investigators developing screening assays and screening against those. And we actually have several projects that are moving along really nicely. So it's a really nice complement to have the two different strategies for developing and identifying new compounds. Some already FDA approved, it might be new uses, some might be new compositions of matter, but having that as part of our program. Maybe the final thing, and I think this is probably close to the final thing.
There's one more slide and then one thing that I clearly have forgotten to put in section G.
Okay, so first, iPanels. Who has heard of iPanels? Who is, thank you. One person, two people, 1 to 3. So one of the things we found is that working with the Harvard Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship is that they learned about what we were doing in panels, and they came to a couple just for fun, and they said, this mechanism might be really good to help them vet intellectual property disclosures as they came into their pipeline. So we've created something that we call iPanels. I understand having the antecedent I is not particularly innovative, but it is a way in which we bring together people with expertise in translation to commercialization. So it's a little bit different than panels oriented toward creating NIH grants. We've done something which I don't think has ever been done before. And that is we've gotten all of our partners as institutions to sign a memorandum of understanding that we're going to work together in this space. We're going to respect each other's ideas. We sort of record the discussion and who said what, so if anyone has a question. So that we're not only working on ideas that are coming from UAB, but we're actually an intake for ideas from across the partner network. We've gotten a surprising amount of traction here. There are some issues about trust that are important, but we've had a number of projects come in from partners, one of which is spun off to a company already, one of which is going to the I-Core Nationals. That's from Auburn, actually, a project from Auburn. The one that's already a company came from USA. We've got another compound coming from New Orleans, from a new sort of affiliate partner, Xavier, where they've got a compound that they want to test in persons, and we're going to use our phase 1 facility as soon as they're ready and they've done what they have to do to get ready for human use. So this is a really exciting opportunity. It's not only fun, but there's another spin to this, and that is we're in negotiations with a couple of venture I'll just say a couple of venture groups that are sort of interested in this model as a portal to good ideas in a region of the country that they feel is underserved. So we haven't quite finished all of those discussions yet, but that's our goal, to have this be the portal for all of our institutions. It will help we trust it will help our partners, certainly our academic partners. It may help this venture partner. And more importantly, it will accelerate the translation of these ideas through the pipeline to commercialization. Because as you can see from the right-hand side of this, one of the issues is how do we support it all? And here's Ellen David from Auburn, who is going to the ICOR Nationals with a wonderful story that I hope some of you have heard from Molly about how that's worked and how ICOR is part of this program for innovation. And then there's a slide that we might want to talk about. Jennifer.
Sure. We hit HUD research capacity, but I didn't have a nice figure for network capacity. And
oh my.
And I see Franny is tucked in the bag. I'm not sure if Jason's
So I don't know if Jason is. Jason was here earlier, but Franny is going to take the microphone and tell us not only about network capacity in the tin, but also about share. My bad.
SHARE is the Southeast Health Alliance for Research, and what we've built is a regional platform for multi-site trials. So if you have a trial, we have a site. So bring us your trials, and we'll get it up and running at all the pins that you see. So that's SHARE, and TIN stands for the Trial Innovation Network, and Dr. Tita is here and has participated in that. That is a national initiative that provides support to people with super great ideas who are applying for funding, and also supports people who have funding in getting their trials up and going. There's an electronic health record component to that, so we're all working together to search our electronic health records and really working together in a way that I've never seen before on all kinds of great ideas and sharing best practices and what's working so that we can all get a process that works for us. So that's network capacity in a nutshell.
Franny, thanks very much. 12 different sections. We actually haven't talked with granularity about either the KL2 or the TL1. They were actually some of the longest sections, and I think that's really for another day when we're going to ask the Training Academy to talk about what we're trying to do. You know, we've proposed some interesting ideas, or at least phrases. We talked about translational thinking, and is Muggs out there, or did he know I was going to bring this up and he's retreated, so he didn't have to answer the question? We're going to challenge all of us to say, well, what do we mean by that? How do we know that we've gotten there? There are a number of things like that where we can think about training in a different way. That might be across disciplines, which is what we mean by translational thinking, but it might also be incorporating new ways of thinking. Boy, that comes through in spades in the NIH Data Science Strategic Plan that they just released earlier this week. Lots of interesting things for us to be talking about. Those will be subjects of other forums when we can all be thinking about how we can best do that. I realize we're now about a quarter after the hour, so we've been just about 60 minutes. Are there any questions that we'd like to put on the table as a group? Or is it the feeling of the group that it is much better to adjourn to the back room and have questions there? There is, I've learned, there is a group in there that pretends they're watching the screen and paying attention. I think that's I'll have to verify that. Any thoughts, any questions, comments right now?
Congratulations.
Thank you. Alan had a question.
Really a comment. Just to follow up on what Franny said, because I've used both the share and the rake and TI, and I found it to be a really, share helped us identify new sites for the trial, and those sites are coming in and helping with recruitment. That has been a challenge, so that was great. But the TIN process was just, I found that very, very interesting and helpful in terms of just getting another review and look at this proposal and provision of resources. And in fact, through that, we're able to get a central IRB. I just say that to say if it's something I think that if people become aware of, could be really very helpful. And then Bob, just to say thank you for your leadership through this whole process.